A journey on the express boat from Phnom Penh to Siem Reap. In the 15th century, the surroundings of what is now Cambodia's capital city of Phnom Penh was the seat of the last great monarch of Angkor. Phnom Penh is the starting point for our journey through Cambodia, an exotic land that is gradually transforming itself from a traditional way of life into modern times. The royal palace and the southern sanctuary of the Wat Preah Keo Morokat is one of the more important sites at Phnom Penh. The temple monastery was completed at the beginning of the 19th century. It symbolises the religious section of this splendid palace complex that also features a reception area as well as royal living quarters. The most striking and well-known building within Phnom Penh's palace complex is the silver pagoda that is surrounded by several beautiful stupas. There is also a small open pavilion that contains an equestrian statue of King Norodom. Once there was a statue here of Napoleon that symbolised Cambodia's former colonial rule by the French. On Wat Quay, there is constant hustle and bustle. It's a popular promenade on the banks of the Tonle Sap River. From the promenade, there's a wonderful view across the river. Each year during the Bonhomme Tuk, the festival of the changing torrents, traditional boats race here. Between 25 and 30 oarsmen row the long and narrow boats. Close to the banks is the Wat Preah, one of the country's most important temples. Since the 1990s, religion in Cambodia has enjoyed a new lease of life. Under the cruel rule of the Khmer Rouge, the religion of Hinayana Buddhism was neglected. It was even almost completely destroyed. Due to its special religious importance, this complex was attacked by the Khmer Rouge, who also destroyed its precious library. However, today things are changing, and it's clear that Cambodia is gradually recovering from its tragic past. For those who seek a little relaxation, the Wat Preah Temple is well worth a visit. With its well-designed green swathes, it's an ideal place in which to take it easy. The many artistically decorated Buddhist monuments in this area, known as stupas, contain the ashes of numerous venerable clergymen. The many markets in Phnom Penh contain lots of practical, everyday goods. The central market, or Sat Mai, is a striking piece of architecture. Well visible on a hill above the town is the Wat Preah Temple complex that is visited by many of the faithful, particularly at weekends. Wat Preah contains several sanctuaries that are dedicated to various deities, as well as to the original founders of Phnom Penh. According to legend, a woman named Pen once came across 4 Buddha statues on a riverbank. So she ordered that in order to protect the statues, a pagoda be built on a hill. The Tuol Sleng Museum features the recent cruel past of Cambodia in the 1970s. It is also referred to as the Genocide Museum. During the rule of the Khmer Rouge, this former school was transformed into both a prison and a much-feared place of torture. Thousands of innocent people were interrogated in Tuol Sleng and subsequently put to death in various despicable ways. Those who survived torture were executed in the killing fields of Chong Ek, 15 kilometres southwest of Phnom Penh. Of an estimated 17,000 corpses that are buried here, there are also 129 common graves. Following the sad and thought-provoking visit into one of the country's darkest chapters of its history, a visit to an active Buddhist monastery is a welcome relief. Part of the Wat Preah was used by the Khmer Rouge to store food, so it was spared from destruction. When the sun has set on the Tonle Sap, the traditional boat races have come to an end and the oarsmen embark on their journey home. The reflection of light on the water gives the river a picturesque quality. It's the perfect place in which to enjoy the evening following an eventful and busy day of sightseeing. The fascinating river trip begins early in the morning. At Phnom Penh's boat harbour are the many passengers who are about to board the Royal Express. The boat cruise on the Tonle Sap is fast becoming a popular alternative to sightseeing on dry land. From the pier close to the Troy Chang Va Bridge, we continue in a northerly direction. It takes around 5 hours for the boat to travel from Phnom Penh to Siem Reap. Therefore, we have lots of time to enjoy the scenery of the Tonle Sap. While the local people prefer comfortable air-conditioned cabins, the open deck is full of fascinated tourists. A few kilometres beyond the town, and the rural leg of our journey in Cambodia begins. Here, agriculture is the main source of income. The local people have adapted to the constantly changing water levels of the Tonle Sap and have built their houses on posts. The river became famous due to a unique natural spectacle that takes place each year in June. It is then that, miraculously, the river reverses its flow. Responsible for this extraordinary event are the water masses of the Mekong that are swollen by the monsoons. And the extra water forces the Tonle Sap back in the opposite direction. After around 100 kilometres, the boat reaches Tonle Sap Lake. Because of its change of direction, the river flows into the lake, which in turn dramatically increases in size. The surface of the Great Lakes in the north of Cambodia expands from around 3,000 to 11,000 square kilometres. In November, the river again changes direction and the lake reduces in size. From the boat, there are some magnificent views of the lakeside scenery. The inhabitants of the Tonle Sap Lake area have adapted to the annual change in the water level. They live in floating villages. For many centuries, fishing has been vital to the local people. Nevertheless, this lake contains more fish than any other in the world. In the early afternoon, the boats from Phnom Penh reach the jetty of the provincial capital of Siem Reap that is situated 10 kilometres to the northeast. Following the unloading of the baggage, the providers of various transport and accommodation facilities await the travellers. Foreign visitors are very welcome here. But the noisy hustle and bustle lasts for only a short time. Most of the inhabitants of the rural areas around Siem Reap have a very relaxed lifestyle. For tourists, the local scenery is like a great natural paradise, but for the region's farming families, it means hard work. And even the very young must also join in. The now tranquil scenery beyond Siem Reap has experienced some bloody battles. Indeed, during the rule of the Khmer between the 9th and 15th centuries, the region around Angkor was threatened by many wars. Even in the 20th century, there were bloody battles around Siem Reap before the Vietnamese army eventually succeeded in flushing out the Khmer Rouge. Fortunately, today there is no hint of these awful events. Wide avenues dominate the western section of the city, and this is also the location of the famous Grand Hotel. Western influence is also to be seen elsewhere. The Artisans Art School was established due to the financial support of UNESCO. So the traditional arts and crafts of the Khmer live on. With the help of foreign subsidies, apprentices are also trained here. The works of art created here are really quite splendid, and they're offered for sale in an adjoining shop. The young artists and craftsmen of the Artisans d'Angkor maintain the cultural heritage of their ancestors, the legendary Khmer tribe. A special role in the culture of the Khmer is undertaken by the Apsara dancers, who once only performed for members of the royal family. The origin of these traditional dances that continue to be performed today date back to the Angkor period. At that time, the female dancers were thought to be divine messengers. The Apsara dance also influenced the development of the Thai art of dance that is more familiar to Westerners. The heavenly dances are depicted in the works of art of many of Angkor's temples. Most of them were created in stone and have thus survived for posterity. For those interested in the daily life of the rural inhabitants, a visit to one of the many floating villages of Tonle Sap Lake is an absolute must. The humble living conditions of the villagers is plain to see. Their way of life is almost the same now as it has been for many centuries. Almost all of the inhabitants of the floating villages belong to the Khmer tribe. That, with more than 12 million members, is the largest ethnic tribe in Cambodia. The simplicity of the houseboats reflects the poverty of the people who live in the surroundings of Siem Reap. Cambodia is a third world country. But despite its problems, these settlements exude a special charm, and the floating villages have become a popular tourist attraction. The highlight of any journey across Cambodia is most certainly to be found within the historic monuments of the Angkor region, such as the women's Citadel of Banteay. In many ways, an extraordinary temple complex. It's one of the few sanctuaries that has not been donated by a king, but by a distinguished 10th century scholar, the Brahmin Vajnavaraya. For centuries, the buildings of Banteay lay hidden within the dense jungle before they were discovered by a French lieutenant. The complex does not impress by its size, but by its unique atmosphere that's also augmented by two idyllic canals. Why the Banteay Shre temple fell into oblivion is still unknown. Perhaps it was due to its remote location. Although these sacred buildings did not introduce any technical innovations, they are the most striking temples in the whole of Cambodia. In creating this temple complex, Vajnavaraya had not referred to the traditional monumental design of the Khmer, but instead created a filigree gem. Banteay Shre became a masterpiece of the art of stonemasonry. The temples of Ta Prohm are full of mystique. Huge Bengal fig, banyan and kapok trees cover the ancient ruins. Their roots look like massive tentacles that wind around the sculptures and facades of the former monastery complex. Thanks to French archaeologists, the buildings of Ta Prohm are even now an impressive symbol of the perishable nature of architecture. Archaeologists who had reconstructed numerous other temples in this region left this sanctuary as they found it. The history of this temple complex dates back to the end of the 12th century and the reign of the last great monarch of Angkor. Seeing these dilapidated buildings, it's difficult to believe that during the golden years of this Buddhist monastery, almost 12,000 people lived and worked here. Ta Prohm was once known as an important place for the production of medicines. From here, the entire realm of Angkor was supplied with medicine. Despite their age and the destructive powers of nature, much of the stonemasonry is still in remarkably good condition. To protect the monastery complex of Ta Prohm from further destruction by the dense vegetation, a number of the nearby trees were cut down. Just a few kilometres away is Angkor Wat. Covering an area of 1,000 by 800 metres, it's the largest sacred monument in the world. King Suryavarman II had this magnificent temple built during the first part of the 12th century. The sandstone figures and detailed reliefs on the buildings are an impressive indication of Angkor's former prosperity. Of the former wooden huts that served as dwellings for the inhabitants of the temple complex, nothing has survived. It's only the stone buildings that have withstood the test of time. Battles from Cambodia's recent past have also left their traces here. The famous galleries of Angkor Wat, with their fascinating flat reliefs, have surprisingly been spared from the heat of battle. The reliefs cover a wall that measures 800 meters long. They provide a good insight into both the royal and religious life of Angkor. Due to the large dimensions of the temple complex, it's advisable to plan to take some time here. For the people of Cambodia, the main temple of Angkor Wat is a unique national monument. This imposing sacred building is to be found on Cambodia's banknotes, as well as on its national flag. Despite the extensive work carried out here by archaeologists, the exact function of the temple town of Angkor Wat is still unknown. It's believed that Angkor Wat was used by the Deva Raja cult while their king was living, and upon his death transformed it into a mausoleum. It took around 30 years to build this unique sanctuary, and even today it has lost nothing of its former glory. Although the royal town of Angkor Wat was never totally abandoned by its inhabitants, the buildings lived a shadowy existence for many centuries. Our extraordinary boat cruise on the Royal Express has reached its conclusion at a place full of royal splendour, and one that is a fitting symbol of both old and new.